Here are the unspeakable things white women did to black male slaves. Back in the 1800s, a time when the world was a different place, there were enslaved men and women, and among them, some had lighter skin. These light-skinned individuals, whether they were men or women, found themselves in a particularly precarious position. Why? Well, let's unpack that. First off, we've got the enslavers, the people who held power over these enslaved individuals. Many of these enslavers believed in racial supremacy, thinking they were superior because of their skin color. This twisted belief gave them a sense of authority that was pretty horrifying. Now, what happened next is where it gets dark. Some of these white women, the wives of enslavers, took advantage of this authority. They could exploit enslaved men, especially those who were light-skinned and vulnerable, in ways that are difficult to even put into words. Think about it. These enslaved men had no real say in the matter. They were at the mercy of their enslavers, and that included the women in the household. Some of these women used their power to engage in sexual relationships with these men. It wasn't consensual. It was about control, exploitation, and dominance. And let's not forget about seduction. There were instances where white women used their charm to lure enslaved men into sexual liaisons. It's a sinister twist on what we might think of as a love affair. These relationships were often fraught with power imbalances and coercion. The consequences of all this weren't just confined to the bedroom. Society was affected too. People whispered, rumors spread, and lives were shattered. Interracial relationships, especially between white women and black men, were taboo and could lead to all sorts of trouble. Chapter 2. Interracial Adultery and Forbidden Love. Late 1700s, mid-1800 AS. So imagine this, the 1700s, a time when the world was a bit different, especially in the United States. Slavery was in full swing, and it was a tough time for everyone involved. But within this dark chapter of history, there were some unexpected sparks flying across the racial lines. Picture this: unhappy marriages. It happens, right? Well, back then, unhappy spouses turned to divorce, just like today. But what makes this interesting is what came out during divorce proceedings. People were spilling the tea, revealing that some white women were having affairs with black men. Scandalous, right? White men, who probably weren't thrilled about their wives' romantic choices, were filing complaints left and right. They were outraged and felt their marital territory was under threat. Now, let's zoom in on these forbidden love affairs. Imagine secret rendezvous in the moonlight, whispered sweet nothings, and stolen glances. It wasn't just about physical attraction. There were genuine emotions at play here. These love stories didn't just happen overnight. They grew in the shadows, hidden from the watchful eyes of society. The consequences of these relationships were harsh: public humiliation, shunning, and sometimes violence. Society wasn't ready for such bold departures from racial norms. Now, you might think this is all about love, but it's not. It's also about power and society's norms. These relationships were seen as a threat to the established racial hierarchy. The consequences weren't just personal, they rippled through communities and had a significant impact on the lives of those involved. Chapter 3. Sexual Abuse by White Women, 1800s. Imagine a world where those who should have been protectors and nurturers instead became tormentors. It's a harsh reality, but one we can't ignore. Picture this: a plantation in the South where the sun beats down relentlessly. Enslaved black men toil away in the fields, their bodies soaked in sweat, their spirits weighed down by the chains of slavery. But there's something even more insidious at play here. White women, the very symbol of purity and innocence in society's eyes, were often the ones inflicting pain and abuse. Let's not sugarcoat it. Enslaved black men were regularly subjected to sexual exploitation by white women. We're talking about an array of horrors, from physical assault to forced reproduction and sexual coercion. It's a shocking and uncomfortable truth, but we can't look away. Historical records reveal testimonies that leave a chill down your spine. The American Freedmen's Inquiry Commission documented these atrocities. enslaved men spoke out about the unspeakable things they endured at the hands of white women. These were not isolated incidents. They were part of a deeply disturbing pattern. Imagine white women forcing black men into sexual relationships, manipulating their power and privilege over these enslaved individuals. It's a stark reminder that evil knows no gender. When we talk about the horrors of slavery, we can't forget this painful chapter. This chapter isn't just about exposing the darkness of the past, it's about acknowledging the resilience of those who survived it. Chapter 4. White Women as Slave Owners and Enslaved Wet Nurses, 1850 to 1860. Let's take a closer look at what was really going on in the 1850s. Enter Stephanie E. Jones Rogers, a historian who decided it was high time to set the record straight. She cracked open the history books and uncovered a hidden truth. White women were not just bystanders in the whole slavery deal. They were active participants. You see, it wasn't just about power or prestige for these women, although some certainly enjoyed those perks. It was also about cold, hard cash. Yep, money makes the world go round, even in the darkest corners of history. White women, from a young age, were groomed to be part of the slave-owning game. They learned the ropes, quite literally, from their fathers and husbands. Owning slaves was seen as a smart investment, and these ladies weren't about to let the guys have all the fun. But here's where it gets even more interesting. White women had a particular role in the whole slave ownership saga: wet nursing. Now, wet nursing might sound like a fancy term, but it basically means breastfeeding someone else's baby. And guess who often got that job? Black enslaved women. Why black women, you ask? Well, it came down to a mix of biology and society's messed up beliefs. Black women were often seen as having more nurturing qualities, which meant they were favored as wet nurses. So white women would have these enslaved black women breastfeed their babies while their own children were raised by someone else. Talk about a bizarre twist in family dynamics. Chapter 5. The Legacy of Slavery and Breaking the Silence. Late 1800s, present. It's the late 1800s, and slavery has officially been kicked to the curb. But hold on, the scars from those dark days are still haunting the nation. One of the most gut-wrenching aspects is the silent suffering of black people, especially the men who were subjected to horrific sexual abuse at the hands of white women. Now, enter Harriet Jacobs, a fierce black woman who had been through it all. She decides enough is enough, and she's going to spill the tea. In her slave narrative, she exposes the twisted truth about sexual abuse in slavery. This woman had guts, and her story was a slap in the face to the people who wanted to sweep this ugly history under the rug. But here's the thing. Not all stories got the spotlight. Black male slaves who suffered in silence didn't always get to tell their tales. Their narratives were suppressed, buried in the dark corners of history, and that's not fair, right? Fast forward to today, and we're still dealing with the aftermath of all that mess. The legacy of slavery ain't just something we can shrug off. It's like a ghost that keeps haunting us. But you know what's worse? When we forget history, we're bound to repeat it. So, we gotta remember. We gotta honor those voices that got silenced way back when. Imagine if we could hear all those stories, all those voices that were hushed up. We'd have a better understanding of the pain and suffering caused by slavery. It's a reminder that we've come a long way, but there's still a long road ahead to build a more inclusive and just society. And that's it from this video. If you found this video informative, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And as always, thanks for watching.